Okay, start recording. So, hi everyone, and this is Let's Discuss a Paper Soon After Reading It. And this is episode 32. And today we are going to review the previous 31 episodes and then answer some question about the previous episodes or about the paper we've read so far from the episodes. And we'll first introduce ourselves. Aniko, please.
Hi, I'm Aniko Kustor. I'm a PhD student at Monash University.
Thank you. Ryuichi.
Hi, I'm Ryuichi Watanabe at Kyoto University.
Okay, thank you, Ryuichi. And as I explained today, we are going to answer some questions. Am I sharing the screen good? Or can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So today we are discussing the previous 30 episodes in terms of the following 6 questions. The first question is, which paper's details do you still remember the best? Second, which paper's details did you forget the quickest? And then the next is, which paper have you found the most sophisticated or interesting method-wise? Then, which paper inspired you to the most to look up other papers from the authors? And which paper did you revisit the most after the journal club? And finally, which paper made you change your mind about consciousness science? Okay, then we are going to reply to the first question. So which paper's details do you still remember the best? Okay, so
I can start answering this, and then we can just switch up the order. But so for me, actually, so just before we started, we have reviewed all the papers quickly, like in a YouTube channel, what we have read in this last 6-7 months. And I was actually quite surprised because I actually remembered better for the earlier episodes than the later ones. So it's very strange. And one example is that I actually remembered, or I can actually still most recall one of the first episodes, the paper that I was also participating in, the paper by Huang et al. About the anterior insula, how it regulates brain transitions. And they had this very nice protocol of people lying in the scanner and then getting injected in with an anesthetic, and then they needed to do different things. And then also they had a very nice figure about this. So like I can remember this figure very well. And yeah, I think in general they had a very nice protocol, very detailed approach, but also kind of easy to understand. So yeah, for me that's a paper that I can still very well remember.
Which episode?
So it's number 5. Yes, the anterior insular cortex regulates brain transitions for gating conscious access.
I see. And then you were the host of this?
Yes.
Okay, then that's the reason why, probably.
Yeah, maybe that was just like one of the first episodes. I had to talk the most, so it was more like just stress. But yeah, still, I think it's, I still remember the paper. How about you guys with the previous paper or the previous, or the,
Yeah, for me also, the most interesting paper for me also this episode 5, the AIC anterior insula modulates the default mode network and the dorsal attentional network changing. It's so interesting point, and I think also they use the protocol or sorry, like the drugs and
yeah. I think it was propofol.
Mm-hmm. And so for me also, this paper is so interesting. And the other, I must remember the animal dream paper. Sorry,
octopus paper, I think. No.
What? Sorry.
Octopus.
Yeah, octopus paper, like episode
17, isn't it?
17.
Do animals dream?
Yes. This paper is so interesting, and I also more enjoyed the after we the section of discussion of our discussion. So yeah, this episode is for me so interesting discussion.
I see.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Then for me, the paper was which one? I think the 10. Yeah, 13. This paper, IFC resolves conflict in bistable perception. And probably the reason is that I hosted or did the summary of this paper. And another, I don't know why I remember this, but I feel this is kind of interesting because this paper addressing the conflict between bistable, stimulus in terms of the error accumulations. So when you're perceiving one, or when you have one interpretation, the other interpretation is still there, and then that error will be accumulated, and then if it reaches at some threshold, then the perception or interpretation will switch, something like that. And I think the authors also did the TMS to confirm that kind of mechanisms. Yeah, I don't know why, but I remember the details of this paper. Yeah.
No, I also use this paper for a future answer, but no spoilers.
Okay, so let's go to the next question. Okay, next question. Which paper have you found them? Oh, not this. Yes, this. Yeah, okay. Which paper's detail did you forget the quickest? Okay, this time, Ryoichi, can you answer question first?
Yeah, let me see. Normally, so I can't choose the one because sorry, I almost or some talks I forgot. So and for me the study of the simulation or a mathematical complex study for me they are so difficult for me. So I can't easy to so forget these papers.
So I kind of have the same impression as Ryoichi. So far, we've read almost 30 papers, and then we discuss in detail. But when I reviewing all the episodes, I found that I forgot almost everything. And it's a bit difficult to, pick the one. But I think I choose the 18. Revision of assumptions framing NECC studies. And this paper basically claiming that the consciousness research has made some implicit assumptions, and that kind of assumption biased probably NECC, or we need to verify these or validate these assumptions, something. And the paper was really interesting, and it was kind of related to my current project. But the reason why I picked this paper is that even though I found this paper is interesting, I forgot what was the implicit assumptions discussed in the paper. So that's the reason why I picked. Other paper, yes, I forgot probably almost everything, but this paper, I really found this really interesting, but still I forgot the details, so I picked this paper. And then
Yeah, I completely agree that especially some of these, so yeah, of course, like very complex papers with like very, like again, with complicated mathematical formulas are for sure difficult to remember. And also, yeah, I completely agree that some of these more theoretical discussions, like they have so many interesting ideas, but then you can't really remember just like a few of them. So it's either you remember like, I don't know. I think it's, if there are many like good ideas, it's more difficult to remember all of them when it comes to other papers or more kind of experimental paradigms. Then you can more easily remember like, okay, this was the thing, and then this is what they find. And I don't know, at least that was my experience. But specifically for this question, I actually choose the Bohn et al., the How Do Children Integrate Information paper. That was number nine. I completely forgot about this. But then I was like, when I was reviewing, they're like, yes, we did. But I actually, like, if you would ask me before reviewing all the work we've done, I think for many papers, if you would just tell me, like, have you read a paper about this? I would say like, yeah, we did something like this. And then, but regarding this paper, because I think it was, I am personally not that interested in developmental research, so it's good that Ryochi is here to represent that side of the scientific progress. And yeah, I think it was also, yeah, I think it was about learning different words, the meaning of words, and yeah, I very much forget about. I know that it was a very like impressive, like I know it was a good paper, but yeah, I just forget the details. But it's mostly because of my.
I remember this paper because I think I suggested this paper based on the title of this paper, because it contained the integration information. That makes me feel, oh, probably this is something related to IIT or that kind of information integration things. But in the end, it turned out like it's kind of more to do with learning by using different media or something. Not media. Probably like watching some video, and then the character in the video like point out something, and then whether the young kids can infer the meaning based on that kind of interaction or something like that, if I remember correctly. I forgot the detail, but the idea is that like there are different types of inference or learning strategy and things like that from different media, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so this is the concept of that study is interesting, but the analytic method is difficult for me. So I think I presented this study, but so difficult for me too.
Okay, so the next question, let's go to the next. Which paper have you found the most sophisticated or interesting method-wise? Okay, so this time I will answer this question first. Yeah, I picked that episode 19, ALPFC for internal probability in metacognitions. Yeah, I think Aniko was not this journal club, but reason why I picked this paper, or the reason why we read the paper in this journal club, was that I was going to summarize or the present or do the journal club of this paper in weekend summer course. And then the method was a little bit difficult for me to understand at first. So I wanted to discuss this paper before the journal club of weekend before Ryoichi, with Ryoichi. And then yes, the method was a little bit difficult, but in the end, it turns out it really makes sense. So that's the reason, the complicated method, but still, it's really interesting. That's the reason why I picked up this paper, but it's a bit difficult to, explain the content of this paper, although I did the, journal club twice. Yeah, it's about metacognition of yourself and some external world or the evaluation of external world. So I came up an example of, let's say, the soccer player, something. So you are holding a ball, and then you have 2 options. And one is the pass to a striker A, which is the, let's say, the professional, or just a great striker. And then if we make a pass to him, then he will, score the goal for sure. But another option, we have another option, the striker B, which is not good. So the chance of score is like a chance level. But the difference between the striker A to B is that you need to make a pass to each of them. And to striker A, it's a bit difficult because there was a defender in between you and the striker A. But between you and striker B, there are no, defender. So it's really easy to make a pass to striker B. So in this situation, and of course, the goal of playing soccer is to score a goal. So you need to evaluate 2 different types of metacognitions. The first is that the goodness of striker, and the second is the goodness or you yourself, your ability, making pass to other striker. And in this, paper, they try to, quantify the 2 different, probability or estimation by their experiment. And it was, that was a kind of idea of this, paper, but it's a really interesting experiment and good experiment. And yes, next, Aniko.
Oh yeah, this is for me the Weilhammer paper, the inferior frontal cortex. I think that, yeah, like you said, you kind of already summarized the paper, that they did a very interesting fMRI experiment with, I think, multiple experiments. Yeah, they also did the TMS on bistable perception, and then I think they have like a very nice and sophisticated and logical methodology. So I was definitely very impressed by that paper. And the other one for me, because actually I couldn't choose only one, was that was more like also an interesting methodology, is the Rosenboom et al., the time perception paper, which was episode number 10. Yeah, so this was when they showed changing videos, like different environments for people, and then looked at their gaze, and then used like machine learning to kind of try to see whether they can infer of their time perception, or how their time perception, how participants perceive time based on where they are looking and how much time they are spending on certain sections and certain informations. And I think, yeah, that was also very nice. I always find it really fascinating when neuroscientific methods, and then also like this kind of computational approaches, can kind of so well work together and complement each other.
Yeah, I picked this paper for other questions actually. Yeah, and Ryoichi, what was your paper for this question?
Yeah. So yeah. Also, I choose the episode. Sorry, this episode 5. Yeah, episode 5, Anti-Insurer. Yeah, but for me, so the most interesting point is that the drug and our consciousness is decreasing, and my unconscious and increasing, and the instruction is audio stimuli, and the participant do the grip or imagine the playing tennis or navigation. So this is a two stage. The one is the interpretation of the audio information, and then the imaging or in fact the moving. So, and if the protocol affects the consciousness, the audio area is activated, but the imagination area not activated because of the protocol. So this design is so interesting. And then just in the experiment 2, the anterior insurer and the backward masking paradigm also, and before the stimulus appears, the anterior insurer is activated if the participant can see the face. So this the structure of the two experiments is very for me so most sophisticated design. Yeah.
It's interesting that both of you pick up this paper for different question, but to be honest, I could not remember anything about this paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a complicated but interesting paper. But yeah, I think especially because of the fMRI kind of setup, it might be a bit like yeah, more easy to understand if you have like read a lot about fMRI studies before.
Okay, then probably next question. Yeah, which paper inspired you the most to look up other papers from the authors? Aniko, what was your paper?
Yeah, so I think it was difficult because I had a few paper, like for example the Weilhammer paper and the Warwick Rosenboom paper as well. But I think the most interesting, or the most that I was really like, okay, now I need to really look into and like kind of search the Google Scholar is the Jan Aru paper and the Jan Aru et al. Paper on the dendritic information theory. So this the cellular mechanism of conscious processing. It was 14, episode 14. Yeah. So I think that was such an interesting paper, and because I don't really have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge in more this kind of cellular level neural biology or neurology, I was very like inspired, like, okay, this is actually so cool to see something work on a cellular level, and then that actually affect, or that can explain aspects of the conscious experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember this paper because I think you, Aniko, picked up this paper for this journal club. I think the reason is that again, from the lecture of weekend summer, weekend online course, online, class, and I don't know why, but then I say something before the journal club, before picking up paper, and then Aniko said, "Oh, this paper might be interesting," and then we started reading this paper. Yeah, it was really interesting. I think in discussion, they try to, link their idea to other theories of consciousness. Yeah, it was really interesting paper. And I also, looked up some Wikipedias for, some cellular, terminology and things like that. Yeah, but yeah, it was interesting paper. Okay, then Ryoichi, what was your paper for this question?
Yeah, so I chose the Delphin's paper. Sorry, I can't remember the episode. I think the compare the theories of consciousness.
Yes, episode 7.
7. Yeah, it is interesting, and I researched the other paper of Delphin. Yeah, and also I think the other, he also studied the other assumption of the comparing the theories. So this paper, I rethink the comparing the theories of consciousness and how he how he summarized what I search his thought from the other papers.
It turns out he was a PhD student. I think now his PhD course. And I don't know the face picture of him, but I know he's a Twitter icon. It's a kind of animation character with a doctor, It's kind of, kind of memorable in a sense. Okay, so yeah, the next my turn, I think. Yeah, I picked up this paper, the time perception by classification network. And in this paper, if I remember correctly, they discuss only about the neural networks, the result from neural network, and then compare it with the data from human behavior, not the neural activity from human. And in the following up papers, they presented the results from human activities. And the paper itself was really interesting. I mean, the paper we read during this journal club was really interesting, but it still has some missing part, which is the neural activity part. So yes, that's the reason why I, look up the following up for the papers, and it addressed the whole question I had. So it was good.
Yeah, and I think it's very good to see when, I mean, sometimes, life happens and like people work on different things but then it's so nice to see when you read a paper from a group of authors, and then a few years later, a few months later, they publish another one, and you can kind of see their like their process of thinking, how they form, how they're changing. And yeah, I think it was a very fascinating topic in general, and also a good kind of group of people having interesting ideas about in this field.
Okay, so next question. Which paper did you revisit the most after the journal club? Okay, then Ryoichi, which paper did you pick for this?
Okay, wait a little. So for me, yeah, also I repeat the Delphine one, and other one is like, so like the NCC's paper. So how to say, advance of the NCC, like something about.
Oh yeah, the revision of assumptions.
Oh,
The episode 18.
Yeah, Yota forget paper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, this one is for study or for how to say, for rethink the NCC or the next study of the consciousness. We delete this paper. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should do that for this paper, like a revision of assumption framing NCC studies, because I almost forgot everything. But yeah, I feel this is really important. Keep these implicit assumption in my mind while doing investigating NCC. So yeah, I need to revisit.
Yeah, actually, I would also benefit from that.
Yeah. Okay, so next, I think my turn. I picked up the paper from the first episode, which is, I think, the PAN, Perceptual Awareness Negativity review paper by, I forgot the first author's name, but the second author was Christoph Koch, and the third author was Michael Pitts. And the review paper basically claiming that the P3B EEG component is not the NCC, but the area component around 200 milliseconds is the NCC component, something like that. And they call perceptual awareness negativity. The reason why I visit this paper a lot is just because I'm now working, the NCC, paradigm data. The review has a lot of information about the, NCC, other studies. So that's the reason why I revisit this paper. Okay, Aniko, yes.
Yeah, for me, I didn't actually have a paper that I can remember, but this is now becoming like, do I remember of revisiting papers enough, well enough? But so one of the papers that I definitely remember that I have been like thinking about this and recommending it to people and just like generally coming to my mind to from time to time was the sleep paper on consciousness, disorders of consciousness. This was episode number 11. And yeah, I think that was a very interesting, like it's a good paper for people who wants to get into either sleep research and disorders of consciousness. I think it's a nice kind of summary into the field. So I'm always happy to kind of like, this is like a good resource. And also I think it's such an interesting idea. And sometimes I see, I watch a TV show and then I see someone in a non-responsive state, and I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I wonder if they have looked at their sleep patterns. That would be actually useful potentially. And yeah, I'm just very curious to see how so in this paper they kind of summarize the literature on how people in disorders of consciousness, how their sleep patterns change, and basically saying that the more your sleep patterns resemble to like healthy or normal sleep patterns, the better your outcomes might be, or it's likely that you will regain your consciousness. And I think it was really like a very cool idea. And this is something I keep thinking about for some reason.
I see. So I think to this question, everyone pick up a review paper, and it's of course natural or plausible because review paper contains a lot of information from previous studies, but at one go we just can't remember everything, so we need to revisit over and over again, and then we need to cite this paper. Okay, I think the next is the last question. Yeah, I think so. So which paper made you change your mind about consciousness science? Okay, I think this time I'll answer this question first. I guess I have several paper, and the first one is the paper we read last week. This decoding rapidly presented visual stimuli, blah blah blah. Basically, like you can decode the contents of consciousness from PFC neurons in no report paradigm. And another paper, if I pick, is that which paper? Again the same thing. Insisting that you can decode the content of consciousness from PFC or something like that. And the reason why I picked this paper is that there, of course, then debate regarding the location of core of consciousness, either like a frontal versus back. And then I don't know. We probably because I am in the T lab and I kind of biased, and based on no report paradigm review paper by Now and other trends in cognitive science. I forgot the year, but then they said that activity in frontal probably related to not to NCC, but more to do with higher cognitive function using the NCC information, something like that. Then based on that, I feel like, oh, then PFC is not the NCC and nothing to do with conscious perception per se. But these papers suggest that PFC can be NCC, so makes me feel okay, then probably PFC is really important. That's the reason I picked these papers. Okay, next, Aniko.
Oh yeah, just wanted to comment on this. That yeah, I think it's with these decoding papers. I think they always they are so interesting and fascinating, and yeah, I always have a lot of questions about but how and what exactly and which accuracy, and I'm pretty sure there will be more like a lot more work coming in as big data and big neural data becomes more easily accessible. And I think one of the very useful things with international collaborations and data sharing is that you can actually replicate these similar paradigms with a lot of people. And yeah, so I'm very excited to see kind of more work in this decoding framework. Yeah, and to answer the question, so for me, something that was really influential or really yeah, very interesting, and I definitely was after reading the paper, I kept thinking about it, was the Toshrao Domoshal paper, the putting the mental back to mental disorders. It was a recent episode. 27, yes. And so basically they argue that because they discuss this kind of discordance or detachment between subjective experiences and how we treat mental disorders, and how because of most of the pharmaceutical treatments of mental disorders, it's very useful to measure their effectiveness, people have been looking at behavioral outcomes and animal models, and they were really focusing on that aspects and then kind of disregarding the subjective experience. And now we are kind of, I think more and more people are trying to really focus on the subjective experience together with the behavior. Yeah, so this was I think it's a very influential idea and very interesting for me. I'm also, because I definitely, like in my PhD, I try to work on similar things of looking at the subjective experience and the neural correlates and the behavior, and also both with the mind wandering project and also with the derealization and depersonalization project. I find it's kind of, yeah, subjective experience, the importance of it, and kind of like to be able to focus on it or emphasize the importance of it is very, very useful. I am pretty sure I will cite this paper in my future work. So yeah, I think it was interesting.
Yeah, this was, that point was really interesting for me as well. But in the paper, if I remember correctly, they mentioned something about the higher order theory stuff as well, right? And that part, I'm not sure, to be honest.
I think, they definitely, I remember that they have a section about the higher order theory, and then because they are looking at this kind of meta cognition. I mean, I'm curious to see if what kind of future works the authors will have. But yeah, just like in general, just this idea of treating subjective experience more important, and then just also recognizing it that actually within psychiatry, within mental health care, it hasn't been really fully acknowledged as an important factor.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, this paper was really interesting and great paper. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Ryoichi?
I choose the like the episode 5 paper, like and like the AI anti-insurer paper, and also firstly, I think I know that insurer is important for switching consciousness. Like normally, thalamus is the role of the controlling the input information from the outer environment, and then the insurer is the role of the consciousness switching. I think they also suggest this, and it is so interesting and the changeable of my belief. So until in this time, I know that anterior insurer is important for interoception or self only, but now I'm so interested that how to load the anterior insurer for not only the interospective, but also the internal perceptual system. So, and this is so interesting and change. And also not normally we use the psychophysics of perceptual information for conscious study, but in this study they also use the voluntary intention or imagination. So these are measurement is important. I started to think. So this paper make me big change to think consciousness and the conscious studies. And
It seems like you really like this paper.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
this.
That makes me feel okay. Then I need to revisit this paper and then check the detail.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, my impression of this paper was that, okay, the paper suggested many like a network or regions, and then the question is, okay, then what this paper wanted to say. That's kind of my impression, and was a bit difficult to kind of digest this content in a sense. But okay, then probably I've already read at least 30 papers with you guys, and then I can understand this if I read now. Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if you have the time and reread this paper, is it like I'm curious to see whether your impression will change, or it's like no, still.
Yeah, I should read this, and I need to say my expression. About Insura, we've read this paper. Again, Aniko was not there, but the Insura is something related to Gestalt perception. And probably in that sense, Insura is something important for conscious perception, or I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, I think the thing is because of this, like the previous paper Yoshi mentioned, but also in like many his like the insula is active in like so many it's involved in so many functions. So but yeah, it's very interesting to see.
Yes. Okay, I think this is the last question, and we've already I think talked roughly 30 minutes, so we can finish here if you do not have anything to say. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think it was good to review these papers, and we should make this into a regular thing, like every, I don't know, it seems 30 episodes is the right number.
I don't know how often should we do. That's the point, because 30, if I think it's too many, and I don't remember any papers at all. Some papers,
yeah, I understand. I think it would be maybe better for like 10 or 15 papers, like 30 papers a lot.
I agree.
Okay, then Ryoichi, do you have anything?
Okay,
then let's wrap up here and see you next week. Bye-bye.